Hello, YouTube. The other thing that I wanted to bring up from 1 Samuel, was this concept of prophesying. It's introduced as a sign that Samuel says that Saul will fulfill, as a sign that the Lord has anointed him as king. Now, this is in chapter 10, verses 5 through 6. After that you shall come to Gibeath Elohim, at the place where the Philistine garrison is. There, as you come to the town, you will meet a band of prophets coming down from the shrine with harp, tambourine, flute, and lyre playing in front of them. They will be in a prophetic frenzy. Then the Spirit of the Lord will possess you, and you will be in a prophetic frenzy along with them, and be turned into a different person. Now, I've looked up some different translations of the Hebrew Bible into English, and not many use the words prophetic frenzy. They mostly just use the word prophesy. So I wanted to look into that a little bit more. And there's a couple examples of the practice in 1 Samuel that I think give a little more insight into why that phrasing was used. The first example was the fulfillment of what Samuel had said in chapter 10, verses 10 through 13. When they were going from there to Gibeah, a band of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God possessed him, and he fell into a prophetic frenzy along with them. When all who knew him before saw how he prophesied with the prophets, the people said to one another, "What has come over the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets?" A man of the place answered, "And who is their father?" Therefore it became a proverb, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" When his prophetic frenzy had ended, he went home. So, that's a fairly straightforward episode, other than, Samuel mentioned that they're going to be having all of these musical instruments. And it seems that, trying to connect the dots a little, that, through the use of music, that they may be inducing themselves into this state. There's another example of the same practice given in 1 Samuel. It's in chapter 19, verses 18 through 24. This is a little more descriptive. Now David fled and escaped. He came to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. He and Samuel went and settled at Naioth. Saul was told, "David is at Naioth in Ramah." Then Saul sent messengers to take David. When they saw the company of the prophets in a frenzy, with Samuel standing in charge of them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also fell into a prophetic frenzy. When Saul was told, he sent other messengers, and they also fell into a frenzy. Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they also fell into a frenzy. Then he himself went to Ramah. He came to the great wall that is in Secu. He asked, "Where are Samuel and David?" And someone said, "They are at Naioth in Ramah." He went there towards Naioth in Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him. As he was going, he fell into a prophetic frenzy until he came to Naioth in Ramah. He too stripped off his clothes, and he too fell into a frenzy before Samuel. He lay naked all that day and all that night. Therefore it is said, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" Now, I find it interesting that a second alternate explanation, is given for the saying, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" Where we were already given one. But, what struck out to me about this in verse 24 is it says that he too stripped off his clothes, and he too fell into a frenzy before Samuel. So, you have a whole bunch of naked men in a prophetic frenzy, with the possibly the instruments mentioned previously. The Hebrew word that's used for prophetic frenzy appears to be naba. And, I tried to look up some other examples of where this word is used. And I wanted to give an example of a translation where, in this example, the examples in 1 Samuel, they translated the word as prophesy. But in a different passage in the Bible, they chose a different word. Now, this is from the New American Standard Bible, and this is from 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 through 29. Now, the background for this is that Eli is competing with some prophets of Baal. So Ahab sent a message among all the sons of Israel and brought the prophets together at Mount Carmel. Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you hesitate between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him." But the people did not answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I alone am left a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Now let them give us 2 oxen, and let them choose 1 ox for themselves, and cut it up, and place on the wood, but put no fire under it. And I will prepare the other ox and lay it on the wood, and I will not put a fire under it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God." And all the people said, "That is a good idea." So Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose 1 ox for yourselves, and prepare it first, for you are many. And call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it." Then they took the ox which was given them, and they prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, "O Baal, answer us." But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they leaped about the altar which they made. It came about at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, "Call out with a loud voice, for he is a god. Either he is occupied or gone aside, or is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and needs to be awakened." So they cried with a loud voice, and cut themselves according to their custom, with swords and lances until the blood gushed out on them. When midday was past, they raved until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. But there was no voice, no one answered, and no one paid attention. So, in verse 29, the word which is translated as raved is the same word which the NASB translated as prophesied in the passages in 1 Samuel. So why did they translate it as prophesied there, but they translated it as raved here? Would the difference, between some of the practices described here and, the horde of naked men described in 1 Samuel 19, would the difference be, the God to whom these actions are being directed?